Imagine a system that automates your email management, freeing up your time and reducing the stress of a cluttered inbox. I'm talking about a system that replies automatically, where you never even have to reply manually to anyone, and it's even done with a personal touch to all the received emails. How? Thanks to OpenAI's ChatGPT and Meta's Llama 2, and many others actually, this is now quite possible to do for us developers who are not experts in NLP. Let's take a look at the different phases involved in bringing this automated mail system to life. You can skip to this timestamp directly to start phase 1 of setting up the mail system. Phase 1. Setting up a simple mail sending client from the command line. Phase 2. Accommodating attachments. Phase 3. Receiving mails. Phase 4. Creating a proper user interface. Phase 5. Integrating the UI and the backend. Phase 6. Email storage and retrieval. Phase 7. Auto reply system with AI. Phase 8. Hosting the app on a server. Phase 9. Scheduling, automation, and reminders. In today's video, we'll be creating a simple backend using Python, enabling us to send emails via the command line. Before June 2022, we could use the smtplib library directly in our code to email using just our Gmail ID and password. That was so easy. However, because of the change in policies of less secure apps for Google, now there is some slight modification needed. The modification requires me to set up an app password, and I will show you how to do that. I'll create a new app password for this project. The app password is basically like a password, but it's generated by Google to allow me to log into my account within the app. It'll allow me to bypass the two-factor authentication. Definitely make sure you have two-factor authentication enabled for your account in order to access this app password. Search up app password in Google, log into your email, type a name for the app password, and then generate the password. And once that's done, copy the password into a text file. I'll save both the email and the password in a text file so that I can log in from the terminal. I will be coding in Visual Studio Code IDE. You can ignore the other files for now. The backend.py is the file we will code in, and the creds.txt is the text file which will contain our login credentials. Let's first create the skeleton of the program, which are mainly the three functions: retrieve credentials, construct email, send email. Let's start with retrieve credentials, via which we will retrieve the login credentials from the creds.txt. Then we write the construct email function, via which we will construct the email to be sent over the internet. Then we will write the send email function, which will basically send the constructed email over the internet. Notice that I have written the pass keyword in each of the functions. It's like a placeholder for empty functions to say, for now, just keep quiet and don't bother me. And then we also write the main function and also call the main function as well. The main function will take an input from the command line arguments for the text file like this. Basically, we will pass the path of the file. We use this code to accept the command line argument. Remember, the index of the command line argument starts from the moment we call the Python file. So basically, backend.py is the 0th index. We pass this information into the retrieve credentials function as parameters. Well, to accept these parameters, we have to modify the definition of the retrieve credentials function. We will eventually pass the file path as an argument to the retrieve credentials function, so let's put that in the parameter in its definition. Let's create an empty list credentials to store the credentials from the text file. We will open this passed-in file and then read the contents of the file. We use the keyword R in this open function to tell Python that we are reading this file. We iterate through the lines and we add each of these lines to the credentials list. Just to ensure all trailing or leading white spaces are removed from each of the lines, we add the strip function as well. Once that's done, we simply return the credentials list. In the main function, let's call the retrieve credentials, pass in the file path to it, and store the returned list in the credentials variable. Now on to the construct email function. We basically want to supply the information for the sender, recipient, subject, and the email message to write this email. I would like to prompt for these to the command line from the main function, just so that all terminal-related inputs are done from the main function. This is more about me being consistent. You can do it another way. I will also destruct the credentials variable into sender and password, because I'll actually need to pass in this separately in some occasions. Plus, it does not make sense for me to prompt the user for the sender email when it's already in the creds.txt file. time for me to modify the parameters of the construct email function, since they will have to accept the sender, recipient, subject, and the message as arguments. To construct the email, I'll import the email message library from email.message module and use its predefined function, because constructing it from scratch will require in-depth knowledge about internet protocols, which are low-level programming concepts. Anyways, let's fill the necessary information in this format by supplying each entry. Don't ask me why suddenly for the message it's set content, because that's how the creator of the model defined it. Once the email is constructed, let's return it. In the send email function, we will connect to the server itself, log in, and then send the email. For that, we're going to need the sender email, the password, and the email itself. Let's construct the email in the main function by calling the construct email function and passing the sender, recipient, subject, and message arguments. We will also call the send email function and pass in the sender, password, and email arguments. Let's also import the SSL module, which will help us establish a secure connection when connecting to the server. We do this by creating a context by calling the SSL.createDefault context function. A context is like the necessary settings for the secure connection to be established in this case. We will now finally connect to the email SMTP server. Let's import the necessary module for that. In order to connect to the server, we use the SMTP SSL method offered by SMTP-lib. We'll first log in using the sender email and the password. Then we send the email by calling the sendMail method and passing the sender, recipient, and email arguments. We convert it to string as well. Let's add the recipient parameter in the send email function as well. It's a good habit to wrap network and server-related code in try-catch exception blocks in the off chance that there's a connection error because of external issues. I mean, there could be many things such as the server being down, which is totally not my fault. The smtp.sendMail function returns a dictionary, which will also help us understand if all recipients indeed accepted our emails. As we saw, if it is indeed an empty dictionary, then all's good. Oh, almost forgot, but let's pass in the necessary information for the connection, such as the important server host address, which is like an address for us to know, oh, that's where we're going. The port, which is kind of like a door, and the context, which we created using SSL. By the way, these are not random information. I just supplied the information from this page by Google. We're essentially done here, but I'm edging you guys by adding all these comments. Anyways, let's run this code from the terminal by calling python backend.py, which is the Python file, and also supplying the creds.txt as the second argument, which is the path of the text file credentials. Now the code runs and it asks for the recipient's email address, the subject, and the message. Weirdly, it didn't tell us whether the email has been successfully sent or not. But let's check the email inbox anyways. Well, let's go! The mail is definitely in the inbox. Turns out the bug was quite subtle, but basically I should have written equals equals instead of the is keyword. That's mainly because equals equals in Python compares whether the two have the same value, while the is keyword compares whether they're essentially the same variable or not. That is basically whether they're in the same memory slot. Not so subtle, I guess. Anyways, now it works. Thanks for sticking until here. See you in the next video.